Welcome to the D- Diaries, Episode 10. We hope you enjoy this podcast while you drive, ride, roam, or drone. I am trying to build an audience. Please like the heart button, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Burning Bridges, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Jim Jones. A nation rests upon virtue, honesty, and informed citizenry and the rule of law. Without them, it neither truly exists nor deserves to. In this context, the nation was born of rock and brute force, but shaped and restrained by paper and a stubborn will to endure. In America, the most valuable paper in the land is the Constitution. Paper governs, and when the paper fails, the rock always shows up. A few weeks ago, a gentleman commented on a Facebook post about Jonesboro, Tennessee's oldest town. I don't remember what the post was about. I do remember his conclusion. According to him, East Tennessee was full of traitors. After Tennessee seceded from the Union during the Civil War, many people in East Tennessee sided with the Union. Whether that makes them traitors or patriots depends entirely on who you ask, what they know, and which side of the paper they think they're standing on. The DNA of East Tennessee runs deep in American history. In Elizabethton, settlers from North Carolina and Virginia, east of the Appalachian Mountains, formed the Watauga Association, one of the earliest written experiments in self-government on the frontier, years before the Revolutionary War. These same frontier families would later be known as the Overmountain Men. Not because they were theorists, but because no one else was governing them and disputes still needed settling. Paper was used to impose order where none existed. The law became the new rock. Nearby, Daniel Boone negotiated the Transylvania Purchase, opening Kentucky to settlement. Men from these mountains later mustered to fight the British at the Battle of Kings Mountain, a turning point in the Revolution that relied less on formal armies and more on resolve, rifles, and familiarity with hard ground. Davy Crockett was born nearby. Andrew Jackson practiced law here, and in Jonesboro, The Emancipator was published, the first American newspaper devoted entirely to abolition, decades before secession was even a whisper. Which raises an uncomfortable question. When a state fractures, is traitor really the right word? Before there was an East Tennessee, this land sat on the western edge of North Carolina under British rule. Political unrest in the late 1760s and early 1770s, including the regulator movement against corrupt officials, court abuses, and rising taxes, pushed many settlers toward the Appalachian frontier. British law discouraged settlement west of the mountains, but paper proclamations have always struggled against rock-hard reality. Along the Watauga and Nolichucky rivers, settlers negotiated leases with the Cherokee and, at times, lived and traded alongside them. At other times, relations collapsed into violence, raids, and outright attacks. The frontier was not peaceful, it was contested. British authorities condemned these over-mountain settlements as illegal violations of the Proclamation Line of 1763, encroachments onto Cherokee land the Crown claimed to protect, and demanded the settlers leave while offering no protection in return. With no effective authority, they formed the Watauga Association in 1772 and drafted their own articles of government. This was not rebellion, it was paperwork for survival. When war finally came, these same mountain settlers did not wait to be subdued. They met British forces on their own terms at Kings Mountain. The Rock answered the paper, and the Rock won. That instinct did not disappear with independence. The Civil War grew out of decades of conflict over slavery and federal authority. Southern states seceded explicitly to protect slavery and their version of states' rights, and they said so clearly in their own declarations. When Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter, paper agreements collapsed, and the rock of force took over. Bridges burned quickly. When Tennessee seceded, East Tennessee overwhelmingly opposed the decision. The region voted against leaving the Union and never accepted Nashville as speaking for it. East Tennessee did not hide its loyalties. Tens of thousands of men from the region fought for the Union. And when Abraham Lincoln wanted to show the war was not simply North versus South, he chose a Democrat from Greenville, Tennessee as his running mate. Andrew Johnson, a Southern Unionist who refused to abandon his Senate seat, later became the 17th President of the United States. That resistance came at a cost. Confederate authorities occupied the region, jailed Unionists, and demanded loyalty oaths. East Tennessee did not rebel against the federal government. It resisted the state in defense of it. That distinction matters. During the Civil War, East Tennessee learned a lesson that history keeps reteaching. Once legitimacy collapses, control becomes expensive. Union officer Samuel P. Carter, a native of Elizabethton and the only person in U.S. history to serve as both a general and an admiral, understood this well. Carter did not command mobs or chase battlefield glory. He led organized Union forces in precise, disciplined operations, becoming best known for bridge-burning raids against Confederate rail lines and supply routes. Those attacks did not end the war. They made governance harder, authority brittle, control costly. When paper fails, scissors come out, and bridges are what get cut first. Burning bridges rarely ends conflict. It escalates it. Now fast forward, and the fault line is running through Minnesota. After the shooting involving Renee Good, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz told President Donald Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, "You've done enough," announced a warning order for the Minnesota National Guard, and said his state did not need further federal help. On paper, the Guard was framed as a force to keep the peace. In practice, federal agents were treated less as partners in law enforcement and more as something to be resisted. On the evening of January 15, 2026, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz released a public video addressing Minnesotans about the expanded ICE presence following the fatal shooting of Renee Good. In the video, Walz repeatedly emphasized that protests should be peaceful and encouraged residents to exercise their right to record federal agents, urging them to take out that phone and hit record, while framing the federal operation as an occupation the state did not need. Around the same time, a separate social media video circulated featuring Minnesota State Senator Doran Clark encouraging people to connect with Defend the 612, a Minneapolis-based activist network, and showing how to use whistles to alert neighbors when ICE agents are in the area. Taken together, the messages trace a line from peaceful protest to organized non-cooperation, one delivered from the governor's office, the other from an activist lawmaker channel, both reinforcing a posture that treats federal law enforcement less as a constitutional function and more as something to be collectively resisted. That is not casual rhetoric. That is paper-tearing in real time. Governors command their National Guard units, but only within a constitutional framework designed to prevent armed standoffs between layers of government. The Guard exists in a dual-status system for a reason. Under state authority, it answers to governors. Under federal authority, it answers to the President of the United States. That tension is intentional. It is the paper meant to wrap the rock of armed power, not a prop for political theater. When it comes to federal law, states do not get a vote on whether it applies. Under the Constitution, when state action conflicts with the national authority, the higher authority prevails. When states refuse to enforce the law or actively obstruct it, the Constitution provides a remedy. The Posse Comitatus Act is often cited to argue that a president cannot deploy federal troops inside the United States. That law generally restricts the military from routine civilian law enforcement. But it is not absolute. The Insurrection Act of 1807 is a long-standing exception. It allows the president to federalize the National Guard or deploy federal forces when a state is unwilling or unable to enforce the law, when constitutional rights are obstructed, or when organized resistance rises to the level of insurrection. In those circumstances, a governor's consent is not always required. The last time that question went unanswered by the courts, it was settled at a farm at Appomattox, Virginia, where the Confederacy surrendered. There, both sides put down their rocks, paper cemented the surrender, and time began healing a nation the scissors had cut in half. History is clear. Lincoln invoked that authority during the Civil War. Eisenhower used it in 1957 when Arkansas resisted desegregation. George H.W. Bush used it during the Los Angeles riots when state authority collapsed. In every case, the pattern was the same. Paper failed, rock followed. Here is where words become dangerous. When the rule of law is shredded and diplomacy stops, the wrath of the rock falls. No one gets out of a fight without knowing they were in a fight. If a governor openly signals the use of a state military force to oppose federal law enforcement, the issue stops being political theater. It becomes constitutional gravity. If a state were to deploy its guard to obstruct federal agents performing lawful duties, that act itself could be interpreted as the insurrection the law was written to stop. At that point, the bridge is already burning and the scissors are out. In 1861, East Tennessee resisted a state government that had rejected federal authority and withdrawn from the Union. Its loyalty ran upward toward the Constitution and the federal government, not away from it. In 2025, Minnesota signals resistance in the opposite direction, pushing against federal authority itself. These are not parallels, they are mirror opposites. One tried to protect the paper the Constitution was written on. The other toys with cutting it for headlines. History decides labels after the smoke clears. East Tennessee was once called traitorous by its neighbors. Later, it was remembered as unionist. If modern states choose confrontation over law, future historians will decide whether they were reformers, rebels, or something else entirely. Once leaders frame lawful enforcement as occupation rather than constitutional function, legitimacy erodes. Control becomes expensive. Even discipline power begins operating in a space where every move risks escalation. The Civil War did not begin with gunfire. It began when Americans stopped believing the paper mattered. The bridges we threaten to burn today are not made of iron and timber. They are made of law, legitimacy, and restraint. Playing with dynamite near those bridges is not bravery, it is recklessness. And when the paper of law is torn, the rock and the scissors always finish the game. Wars end, arguments don't, and the people who dismiss it as just rhetoric are never the ones standing underneath when the bridge finally gives way. If this raises questions or disagreements for you, add your thoughts in the comments. I do read them. If this resonated with you, please like the heart button, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Thank you. Jim D-Jones.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is tramping out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His true